You know what time it is. It's your favorite social media coach, Melle Howard. Coach Melle in the building with your favorite cool uncle, Uncle Flood, and they're going to take you inside the game. So sit down, relax, get your favorite beverage, and hang as they take you across the SWAT, especially in Southern University football and professional sports as they talk Monday Night Football here on Inside the Game. All right, let's get into it.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? We back post Super Bowl, big week, big weekend. What's going
on? Well, I barely survived. No, New Orleans in the Super Bowl, unmatched. It was a great time. It was, the city was just on fire. Like I think for the last 7 days, like the city has just been up, exciting. I fell in the tub this morning. Like it's just a lot. I think
trying to tell you to slow down.
Trying to tell me to slow down. It really did me in this weekend. But no, how are you feeling? How are you post Super Bowl surviving and all the things?
I'm good. I laid low for the most part during the Super Bowl, but the city, everybody I talked to, everybody who came from out of town that I've been in touch with, just been raving about how the city put on the Super Bowl. Nobody does the Super Bowl like New Orleans. That's pretty much the consensus.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to see about starting a petition to get it here every year because I mean, I've been to where did I go? Vegas and Miami as host cities, and just like the festivities around it. Like people talk about New Orleans and its compactness, but I really think that that's what makes for the best Super Bowl.
Oh yes.
You literally can just park and just be in existence for the rest of the time here. And I mean, I've done a lot of walking, a lot of steps, but I mean, I think it was great. The city outdid themselves. Like I'm talking about Bourbon Street was smelling like Febreze. Like it just it really outdid itself this weekend.
Yeah, and that's the thing about New Orleans that makes it so great. New Orleans is probably the only Super Bowl city that I know of where you can literally not have a car. You can get a ride from the airport to your hotel and put your bags down and you can walk for the rest of the week or however long you're here with restaurants, entertainment, everything being within walking distance.
Yeah, I think the highlight of my Super Bowl this week, while walking, I met George Kittle and Clara Kittle, his wife. Literally the nicest people you'll ever meet. And that just made my Nana heart proud. I went up to them like a fan and they were, freaked out or weirded out. And they were some of the nicest people that we met. So yeah, great
Good
time.
Deal.
So what do you think about the game, Unc? I mean, we have a Super Bowl champion. Congratulations to Fly Eagles Fly.
I was surprised by how the Eagles dominated the game. They never let Kansas City get off the mat. They punched them in the mouth, knocked them down, and just continued to pummel them. They never let Kansas City get off the mat, never let Mahomes get started. And that is the best way to beat Kansas City. And the referees didn't have a chance to get involved in. So,
I mean, I was one of the ones as we were watching, I kept saying, just wait, the Mahomes moment is coming. The Mahomes moment is coming. Like he's going to fight back. He's going to claw back. And then it's like 75-0. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess he's not coming back.
Yeah.
It was shocking. I did not expect to be so dominant. Philadelphia has had a great year, and Kansas City has not been the Kansas City of great, but that was, that game was insane to even think about. So, yeah.
Yeah, Philadelphia completely dominated Kansas City. They dominated them. They chased Mahomes around the field the whole time. Their offensive line played well. They protected Jalen Hurts. He made the plays that he needed to make. Saquon Barkley made plays when they called on him to make plays. I mean, for Philly, it was the perfect game plan, and Kansas City had no answer to it.
Yeah, I mean, so many moments, and we'll talk a little bit about the game. Well, not a little bit. We'll talk more about the game in a little bit. But yeah, I think that those are all the things that they or analysts said that Philadelphia was not going to be able to do, specifically putting the ball in Jalen's hand to make the Eagles go. Saquon didn't have one of his greater games in the Super Bowl. he was still present. He was there, but we didn't see one of those big 90, 80 yard, whatever's. Yeah. But the Eagles had a complete. I mean, it was really the defense that I was most impressed about. Like, they just made Patrick uncomfortable from the beginning to the. I've never seen him so uncomfortable in a game, and it was fun to watch. I must say myself.
It was. I mean, and the Eagles' defense is the best in the league, and they played like it. And I thought Kansas City kind of took the demeanor, or they took the game plan that they were going to make Jalen Hurts beat them. They weren't going to let Saquon get off. They were going to make Jalen Hurts beat them, and Jalen Hurts beat them.
Jalen Hurts.
Everything worked together for them. The offense, defense, and Jalen Hurts showed up, and he beat them. Plain and simple.
Yeah. So we reverse order this show tonight. We talked a lot about NFL professional leagues on the back end, but today, since it's top of mind, fresh in the moment, I gotta ask you, Unc. The controversial topic of the weekend or the night outside of the game has been Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance. So I would love to hear, we always have these generational fights on this show. So I would love to hear your take on the performance itself in halftime, and then we're going to share some of our moments from the Super Bowl with you guys.
All right. First of all, shout out to DeFron and Johnny and Cynthia and children for joining us. Appreciate y'all for joining us and watching in, and everybody else who's watching and enjoying the show. Appreciate y'all. But I'm going to tell you, initially, because I was watching with a group of people, a lot of times it's hard to focus on things when you're watching with a group of people. Initially, I was like, and I kind of had the feeling before this that I kind of felt like Kendrick missed the mark. And not because of the performance. I felt like he didn't, at first I felt like he didn't necessarily familiarize people with him the way, because, a lot of artists don't like to do their old hits. They only like to do what's new. And when I heard Kendrick say he had a hard time doing, going backwards, he liked to always move forward, I was like, oh, he's about to do one of those where he gives us some song we never heard before, and then everybody has to figure it out. He kind of did that, but then as I got a chance to go back and review what he did, it was a very dynamic performance. It was not for the people who wanted to sing and dance, although that was part of it. It was entertaining to me, but it wasn't for people who surely wanted to be entertained, because I never felt that's who Kendrick was in the first place. And I felt like he did a proper job in a proper situation, and he didn't have to shuffle and jive to get his point across or to be entertained to me. Now, that's how I felt. I know there have been a lot of people who have had mixed reviews, who have been critical of it. The only thing I thought he should have done was, if there was ever a time to do "We Gonna Be All Right," I thought he should have opened with that.
Yeah.
And I think he would have brought more people into the performance, because a lot of people who aren't as familiar with his music are familiar with that song. I thought he could have brought more people in and then went ahead and did his new set. But other than that, I really didn't, I didn't have any complaints, and hell no, Wayne wouldn't have been better. We wouldn't have understood what Wayne was saying. It would have just been a crap show. So I'll leave it there. Go ahead.
Okay, drop it on us. But no, I mean, I agree with a lot of those points. I think for me, in watching it, first of all, I've been following Kendrick for some time before the Drake beef and all that. I agree 100% that "We Gonna Be All Right" would have been the perfect segue. Actually, not even, I know, like, Not Like Us is like the popular song, but like to bring the messaging, the symbolism, and all of that together, "We Gonna Be All Right" really would have been a way to end the show, as opposed to Not Like Us, because we know what that's centered around. And I don't think that song necessarily centers the symbolism of the rest of the performance as it relates to the empowerment of the people, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that was, for me, what the conversation was post performance was, we oftentimes forget about the artistry that is music, and we focus so much in on the entertainment. There are so many other ways to be entertained, and we get entertainment through music, but I think the artistry is something that we miss people like we watch the Super Bowl very clichély because it's like what you do, but it's literally like one of the largest platform, if not the largest platform in the country, where everybody is centered at one time watching a specific thing. So for him to have so many, in my opinion, blackness, to celebrate blackness in the way that he did in the midst of a president who is anti-black, anti anything that's not white male. It was a beautiful moment. And so I think that for folks who are trying to like figure out the balance of it, like that's, in my opinion, Kendrick was what we needed for this moment. And that message was what we needed for this moment. And I think that it hit them all of those marks. And I think that we have to just expand our minds to how we think about their art, because for them, this is not just entertainment. This is literally their craft, the thing that they work, develop, and skill at. And so that's what it was for me. But to your point, we gonna be all right with a really just meshed all that into a way that I think would have just even more powerful. But that's been the conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But on a lighter note, my most proud moment of this Super Bowl was obviously the performance, the pregame performance, not the pregame. Like this pregame show was something I don't really pay attention to the pregame show for real, but obviously when this particular performer was announced as the pregame show, I was like, oh, I'm all in. This performance by none other than the Southern University Human Jukebox made me the most proud during this game. I think we have a clip ready to go, and let's just take a look, and then we'll come back and chat about it.
Party in the 504. Welcome, the Soul Rebels. All my ladies, stand up. It's the pride of Southern University. The exquisite, the fabulous dancing doll. Making their claim as the world's only all-female brass band, the original Melle. It's all love from your boy Wild Wayne, the voice of New Orleans. Let's go.
Right as I was taking so much drink. So, you know, you and band talk, but we've got you to talk about the band more than we've ever done before. So we were happy for that, proud of that, for that evolution. But the band on the national stage, the big stage, I couldn't be more proud of how they represented us throughout this week. But I think the pregame show was the icing on the cake between the Dolls, between the band, just the Beauty. Like I felt like it was a show featuring other people, and the headliner was Southern University Marching Band, and it was great to see how they showcased us. So, love to hear your thoughts about the band.
That was the way. That was the perfect way for the band. I thought they ended a big week in a perfect way, headlining the pregame show for the Super Bowl. Thought they did one hell of a job doing it. And they actually got to wear the uniforms with the S on the chest so you knew who they were. You didn't have to guess. After, you know, with 9 appearances at the Super Bowl, the most for any other band, in particular HBCUs, but I think for any other band, period, the jukebox, I mean, they showed why they're America's finest band. So, I wasn't surprised by that, but I was really proud of the performance, really proud of them the whole week. Everything that they've done really shows the class and style of the jukebox and what they are and who they've been for so many years.
Yeah, I mean, from to all the things from LA last week to Jennifer Hudson show to the performance at Nightcaps for Ocho and Shannon to the Super Bowl. I mean, they have literally showcased within this 2-week span why they are often imitated, never duplicated, and nobody ever does it better. But shout out to the band, shout out to Dr. Taylor, and because I feel like he's been getting a lot of unnecessary slack over these last few months. So I was good to see that they were able to really to get their flowers in a way that was not just here locally but on the national stage, and really cultivate like a great ending to a season that has had its ups and downs. Shout out to all the other SLAC schools who are extremely supportive. And we see you too, haters. Like, we see the haters. Like, when it's our moment to shine, folks will try to dim our light. But I think the jukebox did one hell of a job this past week.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did a hell of a job. And I see Shay says Southern will be famous. After Southern has been famous for a while, Shay. They didn't just decide to bring them. Yeah, they didn't just decide to bring, let's just get that. Anybody ever heard of Southern University? The jukebox has been famous for a while. So, it is their 9th appearance at the Super Bowl. So it's not like they're new to it. But I thought that this was one of their finest hours for the jukebox. Like you said, shout out to Dr. Taylor. He's taking some unnecessary grief from some people who just want to hold on to the traumatic past. But it's okay. He's shining and coming through and doing the things that I think that Doc Griggs would be proud of. That's my opinion.
I 100% agree. We'll have to get Dr. Taylor on here to just kind of just talk about the moments that he's had over the last couple of weeks. And it was just great. It was great to see that our university, because, oftentimes we talk about like controlling the narrative of what is Southern and what Southern means to us. And we oftentimes are getting negative press, but we have been on a positive press run over these last few weeks. And I'm excited about it. I love when we're in the news for something great. And speaking of transition, before we transition, what is your way too early Super Bowl predictions for next year when the Super Bowl will be returning to the
49ers versus everybody? 49ers versus everybody for my way too early. Since we're going way too early, I'm just going to go all the way out. 49ers versus whoever shows up.
I would have to agree. 49ers versus I feel like the Bills are going to get over the hump next year, and we're going to renew a classic tradition in the Bay Area. 49ers and your Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl next year in Cali. You heard it here first. Before we move on, we need to address something that happened last week or maybe a week before last. Me and you, Unc, I don't know if we agreed. I think we agreed on this, but we were talking about the schedule. And we were talking about us playing in Miami.
Yes, we were talking about that.
We were talking about that. We were talking about us playing in Miami for the football season. And unfortunately, Unc and I was wrong because I think they heard our show and decided that they would reverse the contract.
Yeah, it was like hours after that. They announced
that it was not Southern. So we will not be going to Miami for the football season, but we wanted to address that. But in the meantime, this week in Southern Athletics, as you can see on the screen, we have a lot of things happening: softball, baseball, golf, boat, like just everything. It feels like all of the sports are like coming in at one. Yeah. And we're having a really good sports year. And so with that being said, here's the schedule for this week. The guys should be tipping off here shortly against Alabama State. Big win Saturday for both the men and women basketball over Alabama A&M, which is typically a tough place for us to play.
That's right.
And be successful. But we found a way, both teams, to get the job done. So really excited about the season to come. With that, I think we will go to game balls. My game ball this week is going to none other than the bowling team co-champions of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. They have been on a roll
for the third time in a row.
Third time coaching the year in a row. I think for me, I had been leaning on bowling for so long to claim championships as we went through some hard times as it relates to the things. But no, shout out to the bowling team. And that is my game ball for the week. As always, game balls and predictions and all this sponsorship folks are.
Yeah. Jarvis Antoine, the Antoine Law Firm, criminal, personal, and injury family law. So give Jarvis a call at 225-383-7800. And yes, the Antoine Law Firm, I kind of threw a switch in there. And go back to our school, to the Southern University Office of Enrollment Management. If you want to find out about Southern, you want to be enrolled at Southern University, go to this Office of Enrollment Management, one of our proud sponsors here on Inside the Game.
Shout out to production for working fast back the other day. Threw a loop and they was ready.
That's right. They were ready. They were ready for it, man. And I want to say shout out to Southern University School of Nursing too, while we're giving out game balls, and the young men who were recognized as part of the nursing. They got a chance to be recognized during the Super Bowl. The young male students who are part of the Southern University School of Nursing. Shouts out to them. Congratulations to them. School of Nursing knocking it out of the box. #1 school of nursing in the country. So yeah, shout out to them and their thing. And academically, man, I think we're gonna have to get on. Laquita Thomas is on with us. We're gonna have to start recognizing our STEM students. We're gonna talk about that later, but we're gonna start recognizing our STEM students who are doing a bang-up job too, high school and college. We're gonna start recognizing them like we recognize our athletes. So yeah, we have to get on that academically too. So shouts out. But to the bowling team and Coach Barry Doyle, 3rd regular season champion. Now let's go get this SWAC tournament championship.
Yeah, all the things. I mean, listen, like I said, the positive press run has been off the chain, off the map. Really just excited about all the things that we have going on. We are getting into the second half of the basketball season. And so that's going to be really, really interesting to see how we finish. I think the fight that we've had basketball wise is that we've started well in a lot of seasons previously with previous coaches and everything, but we have not always finished on the second half run the way we started. And so as they begin that second half run, we are only a month away, like 30 days away from the tournament and like 34 days from Selection Sunday. So the season is like ticking and ticking and ticking. So yeah, looking forward to see what Coach KJ and his folks are able to accomplish. How you talked about this before, Unc, but do you any early predictions as it relates to the rest of this basketball season? Both men and women.
I mean, they are 10-0 right now. The women are 7-2 in second place. If I'm not mistaken, the women are alone in second place now. But they're 2 games behind Texas Southern. They play Texas Southern coming up really soon. The men are 10-0 on a 10-game winning streak. And it's been some rough games. They've had some hard times on both sides, but they have been able to fight through. And hopefully the men, they've been battle tested, and hopefully they can continue their string and go ahead and get through this season, because if they are able to do it, which is a tough ask to go undefeated in the regular season and win the tournament, then that would put them in a nice position going into the NCAA tournament. But it's a tough ask. I really wouldn't at this point. I want them to win all the games that they can, but I wouldn't be mad if they drop 1 or 2 going into the in the second half of the season. They have to go to Grambling and play, which is going to be a tough game. They have a few tough games coming up. They play Alabama State tonight. Can't look over them. So, the men's team, they have a ways to go, but they have been playing really well and have really shown a toughness that you don't usually see from our men's team, especially late in the season.
Yeah, we currently are trailing Alabama State 16-11 with 11 minutes remaining in the first half. Alabama State 16, Southern 11. But to your point, I like the idea of going undefeated and, what that means and getting a regular season title. But I'm also like, I've been in that tournament where like some teams come out like have been undefeated and then are gone like the first day. And so it's like, it's this mental warfare. You know that, Texas Southern is always ready for the SWAC tournament. It's like they turn on a new switch when it comes to SWAC tournament play. But yeah, it should be an interesting year to see how it plays out. For those folks who are interested in going to Grambling next week, to Unk's point, the 6-man club actually has a bus headed to Grambling next Saturday. It will depart from the mini dome at 8:30. I think there's like 10 spots remaining or something like that. So shout out to the Jaguar Nation for filling buses for basketball season. Like that's
yes.
we on the roll. I just really love it. We have home games before then. We play both Purview and Texas Southern upcoming weekend. As we said with the schedule earlier, baseball kicks off this Friday in Houston. So if you are in Houston, we play Texas Southern, Grambling, and I think Purview. Texas Southern on Friday at 7, Grambling on Saturday at 7, and then Purview on Sunday at 7. So if you're in Houston area, the HBCU Classic, I forget the official name of it, is happening in Houston.
Cactus Jack.
There we go. Yeah. Feel free to stop in, pop in, root on our baseball team and all of our teams in this particular year. We talked about the men, switching a little gears to the women. They have already lost 2 games in the SWAC so far. So what do you think is the key for them to complete this season and make a run in the tournament?
I just think they have to continue they went on the road and got a couple of tough wins at Alabama State and Alabama A&M. They're going to have to continue to win some tough games. They have Texas Southern coming up. That'll at least get them into a game within first place. They have to win those games that are available to them and hope that somebody else can come along and knock Texas Southern off, who was picked to finish 5th, I think, in the league, and now they're undefeated. So, you never know what's going to happen. That's why they play the games. Southern is always there. They're perennially there at the end of the year. Coach Funches does a good job of keeping his team competitive. I'm sure they'll be there at the end of this year, too. Wouldn't be surprised if they beat Texas Southern at home and find a way to win the regular season championship, or at least go into the tournament in a good position.
Yeah, 100% agree. Just checking out the standings right now as it relates to the men. We are clearly sitting at 10-0, obviously playing right now. We are 3 games ahead in first place, so on a upward trajectory. As it relates to the women, the Lady Jaguars are, let's see what they looking like. You said sitting along in second place.
They're 7-2 in conference. 8-2.
Let's see here. My handy dandy cheat sheets. So we are, 9-2, and Texas Southern. It is 11-0. So we're 2 games out of first place, and we're tied with Jackson State for second place, but we on the tiebreaker because we beat them earlier. Did we beat them?
Yes.
We beat them
handily, yeah.
Beat them handily at home. Yes, we did. Play so many games, it gets confusing. But yeah, so baseball, basketball, I was about to say football, but no, we don't have football just yet. We did have National Signing Day after our last show. So would love to know 2 things. Unc, how do you feel about the recruiting class? And then your way too early SWAC football predictions.
I feel good about the recruiting class. They really hammered the trenches. They got offensive and defensive linemen galore. They got guys that look like they can play, in particular on the defensive line. They got size. And, some things you can't teach on the offensive line. Size is one of them. They signed a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of defensive linemen. They're obviously focused on the trenches because, honestly, they had some guys kind of stacked up in the skill positions that they already have in the program that I'm sure that they're looking forward to getting them on the field. But you have to shore up your offensive and defensive line, first of all, if you're going to be an effective team. I think with the class that Southern signed, if you look around the SWAC, I would not be surprised if you saw Southern and Jackson State in the SWAC championship again. And maybe this time it'll be in Baton Rouge.
That is a dream of mine. I think people press the way too early panic button when it comes to recruiting. I think, because there is this new age that we live in, people are like seeing the names flash by and all of these things. Oh, they're not recruiting. They're not doing something. At the end of the day, like we have a certain amount of scholarships. We have a certain amount of need. I think that because people are always, we need, like, we have to address needs to make them balance with the scholarships that we have available. Like, we're not going to sign every great kid, like no school will. And then there is this idea that the local recruitment, which I think if this class doesn't shut that up, then I don't know what will. Like,
Well, this is my thing. It's amazing to me how so many of these people who have never coached, that have very limited coaching experience, all of a sudden these great talent evaluators. You know, and I see it all over. Of course, you see it all over social media because that's what social media is. You know, everybody has an opinion. But I just feel like a lot of times people who don't know anything decide that they're going to comment on who should be recruited. And you don't know, first, you don't have the skill or talent for talent evaluation. You just know that guy's entertaining when you look at him during the game. That you don't know really what his projection is for the next level, or if he can even play on the next level, period. I see quite a bit in particular locally where they'll say, well, why is Southern recruiting this kid, that kid who's a local kid? But I always ask, well, who else is recruiting him? Well, he don't have no offers. He doesn't have any offers right now. That should tell you something. Like, Southern isn't the only one that's not evaluating this kid as a college level talent. And that's not saying that the kid is not a great high school player. He just may not be college level or Division I college level material. That's just what it is. Sometimes it's like that. And, you know, it's like you said, Southern can't get every kid. They have a certain limit on scholarships. They can only take a certain amount of young people. So that's just what it is. But like you said, if this doesn't quiet down Southern doesn't recruit locally, then I don't know what will, because they recruited locally, they recruited statewide, they recruited nationally.
Yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts. Willie in the comments said, JSU is different with the size, recruiting, marketing, get your fan base excited to buy tickets, and we lack on that. What you think about that comment?
I think I don't know if JSU is different with size. If you really look at it person to person, I think they do a lot of flash, because I think our people get excited about, you know, getting guys out of the transfer portal. Coach Graves doesn't have the same philosophy. He gets some guys, he'll get a few guys, but he prefers to recruit junior college and high school, which in the long run may be a little bit smarter. I don't know. We'll see how those results turn out on the field. Recruiting, marketing, yeah, it does get your fan base excited. But at the same time, if your fan base doesn't know what to get excited about, you know, it's a lose-lose situation, because a lot of people get excited. Oh, they signed a guy who's a fifth year, Jackson State signed a fifth-year senior who was a 3-star when he came out of high school. Yeah, he was a 3-star 5 or 6 years ago, and he's been at 3 other schools. But if you don't do the research and you just look at what they put up on the screen, yeah, you could get excited about that. That's not Southern's philosophy in recruiting. You know, it just is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's all of that. I think it's weird though, because I think when I think about or gauge excitement from our fan base specifically, it's weird to see what gets people going versus what people complain about, versus like when people react in a way that is like substantial to what they're complaining about. So for years, we talked about not competing for championships or whatever, or not winning championships or whatever, or, you know, backdooring our way into a championship game. And then when the team goes out and wins the West outright with 2 games remaining, oh, the West is weak. So it feels like at some point there's always an excuse for some people, not all people. I think some people need that level of excitement. You and I, we don't really need nothing. We're going to complain, but we also hold people accountable. We also going to show up to the games no matter what.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's one of those like damned if you do, damned if you don't moments in some cases for some of our fan base. It's like they can literally go out and do all the things that we've asked of them. Like, we asked ourselves not to backdoor our way into the West Championship. Then we go out, we literally win the West, the games that we have in front of us, with 2 games remaining, like clinch the championship. And the conversation then becomes, oh, the West is weak. So I just don't know sometimes what our fans are looking for, or also how do you want people in charge to respond in order to get them excited. For me, I think the home schedule that we released is probably the best that we've had in the last 10 years. Reading commentary from some of our fan base, it don't make no sense for Jackson State to be in September. Like, bro, what do y'all want?
Yeah. It's always going to be a complaint.
Yeah,
it's always good. Can we play Jackson State back in October again? No, we can't. That's not the way the schedule panned out. So we playing them in September. It's okay. It's okay. You know, you talk about getting excited about recruits. I get it. Not everybody has the time or wherewithal to be able to go and look at film or look at video on these guys. But when I see them recruiting a pair of 6'7", 300-pound linemen who can actually move their feet, when I look at the video, or they're recruiting offensive linemen who are 6'4", 6'5", 290 pounds, who can actually move. They're bringing in young freshmen to develop them who are actually big guys who are accomplished. That gets me fired up. That lets me know that they're on the right track. If I look at the defensive linemen that they're bringing in, and they're bringing in 11 or 12 defensive linemen, and if you look at their level of play and you look at their video, and they all can get off the ball, they can all move, they're all big, strong guys for the most part, that gets me excited. I don't care about the receiver. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't care, but seeing a guy who could run a 4.5 40, run down the field and catch a football doesn't excite me, because there are a lot of people who could do that. And if your offensive line blocks properly and your defense makes stops, you're going to see a lot more of that. So those are the things that, you know, I like linebackers who can run and tackle. You know, I like defensive backs who can cover and tackle. Those are the things that get me excited. So I guess in a lot of ways, I'm different than a lot of people, because a lot of people, they want to see a 6-year running back who played for San Diego State, who you know, barely played, but now he's transferred to Jackson State and he's an All-American because he was a 4-star 6 years ago. You know, a lot of people get excited by that.
Yeah, I think the transfer portal has done that in many ways. Like, I think there's a lot of great things about the transfer portal. I love the flexibility that student athletes now have to like, you know, move around and connect. I mean, just like coaches and everybody else, finding an opportunity that fits you. But I think it has like ruined some of the ideas of like fan engagement and what that looks like. Because we all think about the bright and shiny thing that works. I mean, I think about college basketball. Kentucky is my favorite team. I think most folks know that. And for years, we had the best, in my opinion, college recruiter in maybe history in John Calipari. John Calipari could put together a team of 5-star athletes better than anybody. We probably have the number 1 recruiting class 10 of the 12 years that he was there. But we only won 1 national championship. And so, like, yes, it was great to see that we were going to get 5 All-American basketball players from the McDonald's game, but then it didn't necessarily always equate to us being successful in the long run. And now he's no longer the coach at Kentucky. And so I really think that fit is real, and like fit for players is real, fit for programs is real. And yes, our school can do better at like engaging with our fan base to get them excited about the product that we do have to put on the field. But I think some of it is like smoke and mirrors, and it's not always warranted for the criticisms that that some of our coaches and players and staff and everybody else gets about the product that we produce.
Yes, I agree with you. And I actually think I'm excited. I think we, from the football signing class, and the thing about it is so up in the air because you get the kids on campus and then you have another spring portal, opening of the portal. So a lot of these kids might not even get to Southern or wherever else they're going because they might get back in the portal. So you have to re-recruit those kids, keep them in your program. So, you know, you always have to be on guard of who's coming and going and what's going on around the program. And as long as you're doing that, and as long as Coach Graves can keep those guys in-house, develop their team, I think they're actually going to be a pretty good football team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so I'm looking at the signing class now. We signed Nathan Zimmer, a kicker. We signed Dylan Compton, which is a quarterback. We have Sidney Humble, defensive tackle. Michael Washington, O-line. Caden Jones, cornerback. Xavier Francis, free safety, Jamari Jones, quarterback, Habib Bello, which is a defensive tackle, Maurice Evans, offensive lineman, Cody Morris, which is a free safety, Kendrick Sims, defensive tackle, Tyreek Brigaley, which is a defensive back, and Kai Brown, who is a defensive end. And so, we talk a lot about trench work and it happens in the trenches. It seems like when I think about the show that we had last season, as we were going through football season, we typically, more than likely than not, talked about the need for us to become better on the offensive line, which this class seems like it's a response to. We talked about the need to be better on the defensive line outside of our superstars. This seems like a response to that. We talked about a need of having a solid quarterback, which I believe that Jalen is going to be okay. But this also responds to the gap of losing Noah and Xavier and Zay to the transfer portal, because you add additional quarterbacks to the quarterback room. So when I think about things, or when I think about problems, I think about how do you address problems with solutions, and then the answer should you address whatever you have identified as the problems.
Yes.
Based off of this class, they've addressed what we've all said as addressing the issues. And so I don't think we can't measure them on that until we get the product. But as far as addressing the issue, this class was responsive to that.
Somebody asks, is Coach McNair staying? Why wouldn't Coach McNair be staying? Stop listening to the rumors. Stop listening to the rumors. Why would Coach McNair be staying?
So there was a lot of fair question, in my opinion. And to your point, listening to the rumors, and I think that we also need to figure out, listen, first of all, come to us. Inside the Game is your information.
That's why we're Inside the Game.
Share, subscribe to Inside the Game.
We appreciate you doing that. No shade at you. It's just, why wouldn't he be staying?
That's how Unc talk, because he be in my inbox sometimes talking crazy. I'm like, oh, what did I do to you? Why you do me like this? We're a team here.
Right.
Before I address Ms. Shalina Barnett's question, become a part of the action. Become a proud sponsor of Inside the Game Season 2. Shout out to all the folks who were Season 1 sponsors. We are on to Season 2. Look forward to you guys sharing and being a part of the conversation. So Charlena Barnett asks, is Coach McNair staying? From all signs, we believe, he's here. He's on, he's still a coach at Southern University. And I think that's another thing that people feel like, because I too didn't think that he was going to stay long. But what I've also found when it comes to fit, I'm sure that if the right opportunity presents itself to Coach McNair, he will entertain it. I'm sure that because he was a former head coach, it is more likely than not that people have a conversation about him returning to the realms of being a head coach. But for some people, fit is real.
Yeah.
Fit, culture. And if I have not seen anybody else as a quote unquote newbie embrace Southern like no other, it has been Coach McNair. He seems happy to be there. He seems like he is a value add to the staff, which I truly believe he's a value. You can literally, he don't need a title. He can do it. So for me, in this moment, until the right fit or something more fitting comes for Coach McNair, he's going to be a Southern. And I think he will.
And just to say, and this is not, I'm not, casting aspersions at Coach McNair, but he's not a head coach anymore. He's an assistant coach at Southern, and he's a 60-year-old coach. It would be a very unusual situation if somebody comes and hires Coach McNair as their head coach, being a 60-year-old man. That's just not usually going to happen. Okay, that's in today's, if you look at it in today's brand of football, in today's world, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
And you look at all of the coaching openings that came open this offseason, very rarely, other than coming from people at Southern, were anybody's mentioning Coach McNair's name. And part of that is because he is a 59, 60-year-old man who's a former head coach. There are not a lot of schools are looking at that. They're not, unless it's and for him, he has to look at what situation is best for him. Any coach any job that he's going to take is probably going to be a job where he has to struggle and rebuild the program. Does he really want to do that at his age, right? At this stage of his career and his life? So why wouldn't Coach McNair, if you really look at it, like you say, about fit, why wouldn't he want to stay at Southern? He makes pretty decent money. He's close to home, and he doesn't have the pressures of being a head coach and trying to rebuild a program. I just don't believe that Coach Mack. I know he has the competitive spirit and all of that stuff, but I just don't believe that he wants to take on the job of, say, at Mississippi Valley or somewhere, because that's the type of job it would be, that he wanted to take on that kind of job to help try to rebuild the program there. And all the other jobs, the Miles jobs like that, those jobs are people who are familiar and closer to home, or they're looking at people who are young upstarts. So, I don't feel like Coach McNair is a threat to leave. I don't think he's a hot commodity in the head coaching circle.
Yeah, I believe that if he, so we never know because situations change.
Yes.
I thought, in my opinion, once we got him that first year, first of all, I thought that him going to Texas Southern was his best next shot at sealing a deal to be a head coach and then eventually retiring from that. And then this last coaching cycle, I felt like if he was going to leave, it was going to be in that moment. So the TSU job that fell through, and then this last coaching cycle. So there was Alabama A&M job that there was rumors that he interviewed for, and some other ones. So now that he's not necessarily survived, but for our sake, like survived all of that, I think it would behoove him to stay where he is, in a sense of like.
I can tell y'all this: he didn't interview for the Alabama A&M job.
So there you go. Unc said
he didn't interview for the Alabama A&M job.
Let me say what the street committee said. The street committee said that when we went to Huntsville for that game in November, or whatever that game was, November, that he had interviewed for it. Whatever. Hey, Unc said it ain't true. I believe Unc. But what I'm saying is that this cycle in the TSU job was, in my opinion, his best bet of like leaving. But I love Coach Mack. I love seeing him
too.
I love when we at the media day, he's one of the most pleasant. Like he's just always happy, always jolly. Shout out to Coach Mack. Thank you, Alcorn. We appreciate it, and we will appreciate the blessing that you dropped.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate them too.
Question from Roderick: is the school partaking in NILs, or is it more just scholarships? Sorry if y'all already spoke on this. I think we had a brief conversation about a couple things with NIL and in the changing of NIL. And folks don't like Coach Prime, but I think he did a really good job of explaining the difference between NIL money and collective money, and rules changing in order for us to be more collective centered as opposed to NIL centric. And in essence, collective centered means like you're just basically having money enough to pay players, whatever the stipulations are. And then NIL money is specifically around their name, image, and likeness. I'll let Unc talk about this, but before Unc goes, I will just say that I do believe that collectively at Southern, we as the fan base need to do a better job of figuring out what that looks like. And I would just say, from my own accountability, I have started to have conversations with folks about like what is the barriers that currently exist from us getting a like serious collective going. What are the conversations that have happened before? Because people have a lot of complaints, but for me, in my own edification, I like to ask questions in order to make sure that if I'm doing something or trying to start something, that it is done with impact in not righteousness, but impact in like it actually you're doing something to help an issue.
The ability to serve, to actually serve with a purpose.
Yeah, serve with a purpose and not just going into stuff just complaining. So I have been asking a lot of questions. I have come into some things that I would consider that would be barriers to like what's been the play of it right now. But would love to hear your take on it.
Well, I know that as far as Southern's concerned, the collective they started is called the S Club. That is the collective that they're trying to get off the ground and have been able to get off the ground. To answer Roger's question, Southern is participating in the collective. There is some NIL money. There is some collective money that it has been spent. I can't tell you to who and to what, how much, but I know that there has been some. And I think as we grow it, and I think they're attempting to grow it, attempting to put it out there, I think you'll probably see more because it's inevitable. We're going to have to get involved in that at this point.
Yeah, and another thing I would say is like, and I think that the university, that part of the onus, because this is a balance, because like we collectively as supporters, like I can't go and take Reggie Flood a check for whatever to say, oh, this is collective money. So there is a balance that has to be a working relationship with people who are raising money on behalf of the institution, and then the institution taking fidelity to make sure that it's distributed out in ways that make sense. I do know that there are some talks around starting an advisory council for folks around the institution who are familiar with athletics or who are like supporters of the athletic department, in order for them to figure out what's the working relationship between the board, between the athletic department, and supporters. Because there's a lot of moving pieces, and we historically, I will own this as a supporter, alum, all the things. We historically have not been able to be successful at things that require multiple moving pieces. So like when you got all of these hands, like it's a lot of people who want to be a part, and it's just a lot of different stuff happening. And so I'm hopeful that there will be some leeway towards it. My charge to the athletic department will be like to lean on the people who want to support this and allow us to help the institution to grow. But it's not as robust as we would like. But there are some opportunities for fans right now, to Unk's point, to engage in things like the S Club and 1880. And there are a lot of people trying to, but I think that there's more work to be done.
Definitely. So hopefully we see this thing grow and we get more active in the NIL and collective activity. I think we will. I think we'll grow it. And like I say, it's going to be a necessity that we do that if we're going to stay competitive. So we'll see.
Yeah, Bolden had another question, which I think is a topic that folks often talk about. Why are getting transfers out the SWAC that did not do anything in his last school? So I think the question, what Willie's asking us, is basically inter-conference transfers. If they're not productive at another school, why do we? And I know we've recruited some people from other schools or made offers to other SWAC schools. I'll let Unk tackle this, but before Unk tackles, I love to say that before Unk tackles this, I'll add my 2 cents. So for me, I think that people get caught up in this too, but we talked about this earlier. Fit is a real thing. For example, Saquon Barkley, and we're not professional athletes, but Saquon Barkley was in a situation that just didn't fit him. He went to Philadelphia and he became like almost a new running back. And so I think sometimes intra-SWAC transfers are okay because it literally is about fit. Who are the guys that are around you in particular positions? What is coaching like that's different? So I truly believe that there are players who can come from other SWAC schools who are not productive, just like they come from these 5 stars with 0 plays and y'all get crazy about them, that can go into another SWAC school and be productive. I think there is something to be said about fit. And so that's what I'll leave it as.
Well, and I'll say this, Coach Graves, I don't know about other schools. I don't know about previous coaching staffs, but Coach Graves doesn't seem to have made that a practice on the regular. He doesn't seem, I know we got the young man who was at Mississippi Valley and we offered the young man the quarterbacks, but both of those guys were productive when they were at their previous schools. I don't know what the insides outs of those situations. I think the young man from Pine Bluff ended up at Lamar. And we got the young guy who was a JUCO quarterback out of Valley who, so I think you want bodies, guys who are proven college players. That guy at Valley is a guy who started games. But I don't think on the regular, at least under Coach Graves' administration, that they've made a habit of getting guys who are out of the SWAC who haven't been productive. I think when you see teams who do sign guys out of the SWAC, they're usually guys who have been productive at other schools. I mean, if you look across the board, they're usually people who've been productive. Now, that may say something that maybe you don't respect the SWAC or what. I mean, that could be a lot of things that you don't value the SWAC or whatever. But most of the guys who transfer and get signed are guys who are productive. They just are productive at other schools. But like you said, sometimes that other school just doesn't fit them the way that another school will. So, I mean,
and you see it all the time, not just with us. I mean, Noah going from Grambling to Southern. We have now Zay going from Southern to Grambling. I think there's a couple things that are like to your point, there's proximity to those players. Like these coaches are seeing these players, they're preparing for these players, and sometimes they fit exactly what they need in the moment.
Yes. And a lot of times, those coaches have recruited those players and have previous relationships with them.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the other thing is like there's a level of familiar. I can't say the word familiarness.
Familiarity.
I can say the word. Some words just mess me up. But because I talked to a particular coach at Grambling not long ago, and he was like, listen, if I'm familiar with a player, whether he go to this school or that school, like if there's an opportunity or window to re-recruit that player, I'm going to re-recruit them. And so I think when you're proximate to this like body of players, like it's so many players that play in the SWAC, and sometimes people on the bench are just overlooked and are actually the better, more productive player. And so I just don't think that, it's always a bad thing when we have intra-conference transfers. Listen, people talk about the product that is SWAC football a lot. I am now 35 years old. My first Southern game was when I was 1 year old. So I would like to say that I've been following Southern football since I was 34. And I have loved and enjoyed SWAC football. I've been exposed to other avenues, but this has I don't think that our product is just that bad where people are just like so anti players who come from the SWAC.
I think what people get caught up in a lot of times is that when you're in SEC country and you go from watching SWAC to watching SEC, there's a whole myriad of football in between the NFL Pro League, which is the SEC, and the SWAC. There's a whole myriad of football in between there with a bunch of, in particular in Division I football, which is SWAC is Division I football. So you get to see, if you watch at different levels, you'll see that the SWAC is not that much different from other FCS conferences. Although we haven't been able to win a lot of games out of conference, we still play tough. We play a lot of those schools evenly. Like it wasn't a big difference between Southern and McNeese. It hasn't been a big difference between a lot of the SWAC schools, although we haven't gotten the victories. We have to be able to win some of those games. But when you're watching the SEC on TV and then you're watching the SWAC, there's going to be a big gap between the school's budget, who's $50 million just for football, and the school's budget, who's $15 million for the whole entire athletic program.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about this piece, Willie said that it comes across as lazy recruiting in all sports. The only thing I would say to that, though, is like the data doesn't support some of these narratives that we try to bring out. Like we're not recruiting only other inner SWAC players. Like literally, we talking about 2 out of maybe 30 offers that we made even in this cycle alone. So,
thank you.
Like Gary Chambers once said, "In God we trust. Everybody else bring numbers." So I would encourage us all. To like the data doesn't support the narratives often that we put out there. And so the data does not support that this is the only type of recruiting that's happening, or if it comes off as lazy. Like 2 out of 30 is like insane. So it's not the narrative that we're only recruiting so that our recruiting becomes lazy because we get 1 or 2 offers from inner SWAC schools. And I don't like narratives that don't or not supported by data.
Yeah, we literally, if I remember correctly, we literally signed 1 kid this recruiting period from another SWAC school, and that was the quarterback from Mississippi Valley.
From Mississippi Valley. And watch he gonna come in, throw 100,000 touchdowns. So we're going like, he was at Valley. Why we got him? But yeah. So we have about 3 minutes to go before we leave the show. Want to update the SWAC scores for the guys. So it's 36-39. Alabama State is beating us at halftime. But before we go, I just want the world to use Jalen Hurts as an example of like Jalen Hurts and really DeVonta Smith as an example of like you can really do anything that you put your mind to. Many people doubted Jalen Hurts when he was at Bama. And even to this day, making the league, people have always doubted his ability. And now he is a Super Bowl MVP, and literally has just kept his head on his prize and his vision and doing what he know he was capable of in the term of doubters. And so a lot of naysayers are having to backtrack their thoughts about Jalen and his ability to win a Super Bowl. And he went ahead and did it against arguably what many will consider who is on a race to become one of the greatest of all time as it relates to playing the quarterback position. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Jalen Hurts and also local hometown guy, Devontae Smith. Many people also doubted his ability to be successful in the league. Small guy, small kid, but again, kept his mind on the prize and the vision, and now has a Super Bowl champion. So
yes,
he can do anything. Okay.
Congratulations to them. Shouts out to them. I guess we got to get out of here. We're running a little bit over time. If you want to join us, check out Inside the Game on the YouTube channel. Make sure you join it, watch, like, and subscribe to Inside the Game with Coach Melle and Uncle Flood. Make sure you put that in there when you're searching. It'll come up to us, and you make sure you like and subscribe to Inside the Game. You can go to our website, Inside the Game website. Check it out, but do that for us. And make sure you check us out on Facebook from 6 to 7 p.m. every Monday and on KTTP 11:10 a.m. in Alexandria. Or download the KTTP app and check us out. Tell you what, man, we had a great show today, me and Coach Melle. So we appreciate everybody that's joining us. The man upstairs says the same. We'll be back at the same time and the same place, because he'll always take you inside the game.
Peace.